Hey guys, it's been a while since I did a podcast. Hope everyone is well and safe. On this podcast, I have Mehul Gandhi, who is a financial planner here in Vancouver. Enjoy. Mehul, tell us a little more about yourself.
Yeah, first and foremost, thanks for the opportunity. We've been trying to get this going for a while here, and I think that this is a good time to be able to sort of share my thoughts. As you said, I'm a financial planner. I do have my CFP designation, which I think is important. We'll talk about that later. I've been in the industry for about 12 years now, and really sort of pride myself on providing holistic financial planning, which is one of those horrible buzzwords in the industry. Holistic financial planning. I actually just cringe at just hearing myself say it. But I think now more than ever, we're really seeing how important it is for individuals to have integrated plans, which kind of look at everything, not just the investments or the insurance or things like that.
So we met probably about was it last summer?
Yeah, last fall, I think, maybe September.
Yeah, I remember the weather was really good when we were sitting
That's right.
inside there, right? It was quite nice. And at that point we were talking a lot about savings accounts and the younger generation not saving enough, and then we had more talk on social media and platform and things like that. But now with COVID really affecting people. Um, Savings is very very important, and the ones that did not save are being affected today. You want to just talk a little more about that?
Sunil, and oftentimes, like these in times of crises, hindsight's 2020, right? So now it's so clear to so many Canadians out there that how important it was to have an emergency savings, to have 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year's worth of savings or expenses stashed away. Um, and we might be running into a position now or a situation now where the 3 months of savings that financial planners like myself typically recommend might not be enough. And thankfully, we live in a country where our government's able to provide relief and support to Canadians, which is amazing. We should all be thankful for that.
Hmm.
You always got to take care of yourself first and foremost, right? And I still believe that if there are positive things that can come out of this, we always want to try to find the silver lining. I think it's learning going forward that things like this can happen. The unexpected happens, and we need to be prepared. So creating the habit of saving, I think, is the most important thing to focus on. Right? People can say, well, I don't have enough discretionary or extra income every month to put away, or I can't put enough away. It might only be $10 or $25 a month. That's not the point. The point is we're trying to create habits here. And as your career advances, your income increases, your businesses start being more profitable. You've already built that habit and you'll start saving more and more. But it's really the psychological and the emotional side of financial planning that I'm most interested in and that I try to impress upon my clients.
I like that it becomes a habit, even though whatever how much it is right now in the beginning, the more and more you do it, obviously the money will grow eventually, and it's all about habit. So 3 months is what you guys um, recommend.
That's like from every, even growing up as a kid, when I got my first job, that sort of rule of thumb is always put away 3 months worth of expenses. Now, obviously, when we sit down with clients, we take a more personalized approach. We really try to take a look at what their expenses are like, whether they're business owners, self-employed versus being in a career, or sorry, as an employee. What type of benefits they're given through their employer, things like that. We can really determine how much they need to have put away.
So I just
Um,
want to sorry, go ahead, continue on.
Yeah, so and I work primarily with business owners, and for business owners, it becomes even more important because we're not only just talking about putting money away for personal emergency purposes, but also for corporate or company emergency purposes. So, do you have an emergency fund in your business, or liquidity in your business, or access to cash in times like these, where if your business is suffering, you can at least um, survive for a
Mhm.
particular period of time.
Now, for companies and even individuals who are having a hard time just even getting by and paying bills, how do you suggest them start?
That's it, right? I mean, when you're a new business owner, being an entrepreneur myself, I would say that in the first few years, it's so hard to even think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the risk, the inherent risk of being an entrepreneur, right? You're skating on thin ice, to use a Canadian hockey analogy, and and a lot of times, if that ice falls from beneath you, you can drown. And that's the risk we all take. And hopefully that risk provides a payoff. However, when you're going into business is where I believe you should take the time to create that cushion. So if whether you're leaving an employer and going into entrepreneurship, whether maybe you and some friends are deciding to go turn your side hustle into a full time, make sure you have that financial cushion to absorb any issues you might run into in the early years before you're actually profitable. That might mean an emergency account. That might mean you have a partner that has a consistent income or a solid income that you can kind of rely on. That might mean a lot of things. That might even mean access to credit, to affordable, cheaper credit to sort of protect you. But again, it's about having a plan. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, jumping into things, it's really, you can get really excited by an idea, by a service, and you want to go ahead and open this business. But I think that any financial planner, small business banker, people like that will always say, hey, what's your business plan and what's your contingency plan?
A plan that somebody sticks to is the main thing. I know a lot of people that have plans, but 2 months later, or sometimes even within a week, it's the plan is shredded, or they're not following that. So yeah, that is very important. And then having somebody to fall, well, not somebody, but having something to fall back on, if it's even a line of credit on your house, or a line of credit on a business, which is very hard to get. Yeah, even for an established business. But having something there to fall back on is key. And then also, here's the thing: when you want to get into business and you have a job already, there's no need to leave that job. You can do it at nighttime, you can do it at evenings, you can do it on weekends. And once the company starts taking off and you can actually exit, I think that's a better advice than just jumping away and starting it. I know
I think
it's
I
different
agree.
for a lot of people.
I think that the traditional view on that was, the very alpha sort of mentality of you got to jump in with both feet and throw caution to the wind, and you got to be take on that risk, and it's the only way you're going to really be successful is by committing 100% and just as an entrepreneur. This is what I'm sort of referring to. But I think today, with the different ways you can be an entrepreneur, the different ways you can set up that side hustle, the different types of businesses that exist out there, and the technology that you can leverage, I think you're spot on. You can do it smarter today. You can be more cautious and really, like I said, leverage the tools and resources out there to really do it in a more systematic, thoughtful way, and not have to be that hero. Now, certain businesses are going to be very labor intensive
Mhm.
initially, and you're going to have to really jump in with both feet. Certain business owners and entrepreneurs are still going to prescribe to that mentality if you got to jump in with both feet. I mean, for the longest time, I believe the same thing, and to a certain extent I still do,
Mhm.
depending on the type of business. But I think you're right. I think you really need to, if the opportunity is there, to be able to do it in a more controlled, planned out way. I think it's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, cutting expenses as well, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
ways around that, right? But
Big time.
income is like the bills don't stop, right? Even
No,
though the income's not coming in, the bills don't stop. So there's got to be a way to pay those.
correct. Correct.
Uh, any tips for, not business now, for individuals to save or even cut back? I know a lot of people are saying, "Hey, look, you know what? This is what I make, and I have a mortgage, I have my rent, I got food costs, I have everything else, and at the end of the day, I'm negative." What's your take on that,
Yeah, I
or your
love that
advice
you.
on that?
Yeah, I love you asked that question. It's something I'm super passionate about. First and foremost, have a budget, right? Um, you're going to see improvement in things that you measure, right? That's a well documented phenomenon. Whether it's economics, whether it's in human performance, when you start measuring things, you start improving, just because you're aware. right? So that's where I would say start with that. That's tip number one. Know what's coming in, know what's coming out every month. And the next thing I would say is, again, creating those habits. So, what is that amount that you can save on a monthly basis, and put that away first. The old Warren Buffett adage, pay yourself first, right? And then pay others after. Or, it's better to save first and spend what's left versus spend first and save what's left. Because oftentimes there's nothing left. In a more sort of modern, practical tip that I can give is, dude, this as well as everybody else, those subscriptions. We live in a subscription-based economy now. Every company is trying to figure out a way to get their customers and clients latched onto some kind of subscription service, because it's great for the bottom line. It's great for their balance sheets and their financials. But we can get tripped up in the dozens and dozens of subscriptions that we have coming off our credit cards or checking accounts on a monthly basis that we're not even aware of anymore. You sign up for stuff and you might not even be using it. Right? Used to be, it was just a gym membership, right? Everyone had a gym membership, but no one went to the gym. That was like, the best business to be in was having a gym and offering membership. But now you think about it, you got your Netflix and your Spotify, and you can now get subscriptions for coffee and for shaving blades and for clothes now, and all these different things that kind of add up. And you think it's this great service because the service they provide is amazing. The packaging aesthetically is so pleasing. It's so easy to re-up and to reorder and things like that. And you seem to forget, first and foremost, what you've committed to. Second of all, you don't stop and think if this is something you really still need, right? So that control is somewhat gone, and that adds up. So now you're spending, I've sat down with clients and gone through subscription, sort of clearing out the different subscriptions and sort of just going through seeing what they need and what they don't need. And you can see $500-600 a month going into prescriptions that honestly clients do not need. And I think that's a great way to sort of go through. I recommend everyone go through there and audit their subscription list. I think there's software out there as well. I would say twice a year.
Twice a year? Yeah.
I mean, you can do it quarterly. You're really on it, and you've got the Excel spreadsheets and all that, and that's great. I mean, the more prepared, the better. I'm not saying don't enjoy life. Some of those subscriptions are fantastic, and it's really made life easier and more enjoyable. And at times like this, when we're locked down, trying to get someone to cancel their Netflix would be, a horrible thing to suggest. but I do think, at least once or twice a year, you should go through and just audit and keep track of what your expenses are as a whole.
Good point. Very good point.
Especially now, more than ever. When people are seeing their incomes, their household incomes reduce significantly, let's go through there and see what you need and what you don't need.
No, I get that. Final thoughts. What do you think here in the next 12 to 18 months for people returning back to work, and any investment tips, any advice you can give?
Yeah, absolutely. My feeling on this really seems to be the interjection or the crossover point between the economy and the virus itself, right? So I don't truly believe we see a real economic bounce back until we really have a handle on this virus, which means cheap, readily available testing and a viable, legitimate vaccine, which is supported by governments around the world. And also we have to, as Canadians, remember that it's not only, when we're talking about the economy in general, it's not only about the Canadian economy. It's not only about how the virus is faring in Canada. We do need to look at the neighbors down south. We do need to look at Europe, the UK, especially larger countries with larger economies, because the overall world economy, the overall stock market is really going to move back up out of this bear market or depression or bottom when the larger economies of the world get a handle on the virus. So as Canadians, we have this tendency to really focus on what's happening at home, but we really need to look at this as a global pandemic, because that's what it is, and see how that's going to move. So my tips are, as far as getting back to work, I think we're still, no expert, but I think probably fairly a couple months away. Every province is different. In BC here, we seem to be doing a really great job, and I'm really proud of the response the government's had, and how the communities have really pulled together to really flatten this curve, as they say. And it looks like we're heading in the right direction, and hopefully we can kind of get back to work sooner rather than later. I know Ontario and Quebec, it's a little bit more challenging, and they have their struggles out there, but I think we do nationally have it, seem to have a good control of it compared to other countries. From an investing standpoint, if you are of the mind, which I'm seeing to be prevalent, and I'm happy that it seems like Canadian investors have really learned from 2008 and realized that when the market drops like this, A, don't panic. B, you got to commit to writing it out and stick to the plan. And C, if you have extra cash, it's a good time to deploy it. So if that's the mindset that your listeners have, then what I would say is make sure, A, you're revisiting your plan. You're making adjustments, especially if you're close to retirement. You should be going back to your integrated financial plan and making the adjustments necessary. If you don't have an integrated financial plan, this is the time to get one. This is really the time that looks at everything, not just retirement, but really encompasses everything. For those individuals that are looking to deploy cash, let's do it in a controlled way. Don't take a whole lump sum and throw it into the market. Let's deploy it over a systematic period of time. Take advantage of that dollar cost averaging, because we are going to see a lot of volatility in the market for a lot of time here. And you want to make sure that you're sort of averaging that volatility out, or smoothing that curve. So those are my investment tips. And you know what? Now is a great time to learn. To learn. If you're new to investing, learn about it, read about it, and reach out to people in your circle, whether they're financial professionals or people with experience. This is a good time to really get a handle on it. Things are slow. People have a lot of time on their hands. Let's use this time to get better and to learn new things.
Turn Netflix off for 10 minutes and read about financial and how you can get ahead with this. Right.
Correct. Work on that side hustle. There's so many things that we can be doing now, which I think we have to find the silver lining in all of this madness, and I think there are some opportunities. Spend time with family, reconnect with old friends using the technology, and just try to keep your life enriched.
Yeah, look at this. Like, we tried to get together for 10 months and finally meeting over Zoom.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
It's interesting. Any final thoughts?
I would say, final thoughts for this is same and different. From a market standpoint, from an investing standpoint, a global economic standpoint, this is same and different. It's the same because we've seen crashes before. We've seen corrections before. 2018 was definitely the end of 2018 was certainly could be considered a mild correction, and we've all seen how different behaviors are rewarded or penalized in the midst of and after those crashes. Acting hastily, acting on emotion, acting without a plan, you are going to be punished. It's going to be detrimental. But if you have a plan, you have an advisor that holds you accountable and that can help manage your emotions, we can see that those individuals usually come out of this ahead, so to speak, in the long run. So that would be my big thing. But it's different because this is a very different reason. This is an events-based correction or crash.
It's not financial based, right? It's more health. It's health based, and going back to what you said earlier, right? Like in 2008, when people were jumping and selling, right? People weren't really doing that this time because it wasn't financially related. It was more health related. So I don't think they were thinking about that. They're more thinking about how to protect the family, how to keep my job, how to buy toilet paper, right?
Absolutely.
And like that kind of stuff was more important than selling, right?
Totally. And I think still today there's individuals out there, that don't fully understand what happened in 2008. Your average investor, your average Canadian probably doesn't have a total grasp or handle on what happened.
Because it wasn't really,
I'm not sure. There's a lot of things that weren't disclosed. But people understand this. People understand this very clearly. There's a health pandemic. Life has changed as we know it. And for that reason, I think it's going to take a lot longer to get out of this, because the government can't come out and say, okay, listen, guys, everything's fine. No matter who stands up on what podium in front of the press and says that it's time to get back to work, or we're going to be fine in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. The public knows, like, we'll see it we'll believe it when we see it. And
consumer confidence has to come back before the economy starts coming back. That's going to be challenging. Yeah.
You need a vaccine. You need to really have people, I have my cousin actually owns a gym in downtown Toronto. Amazing location, wonderful gym. Ferris 360. I'm going to give them a plug. Check it out. They're phenomenal. They're doing a lot of online workouts right now. But he made a great point. He's like, you think if this thing was to end tomorrow and businesses were to open, do you think people are going to run into a gym all of a sudden, or run into a theater and watch a movie? No, it's going to take some time for things to get back to normal and for that confidence to come back. Like you said, spot on.
Actually, I've been talking to a couple of friends here in the last couple of weeks, people that never cooked. And now they're starting to, and they enjoy it. It's a stress relief for them. And like, man, my food is really, really good. They're not rushing back.
No.
Right?
Why would you? Right?
Exactly.
Everyone's baking bread now, right? Everyone's baking bread at home now.
Yeah. Well, you're saving money on top of that, right? You don't have to. You don't have to spend it, and like half the time, the food is better.
It is healthier,
right.
Better. You have more control, and you're learning new skills, and you're most likely sitting around the table with your family and having conversations, and hopefully, again, there's some positives that can come out of this.
Yeah, is it consumer confidence? I'm not saying don't go to restaurants. I'm a fan of restaurants, and we have a lot of people that watch the podcast here or listen to it, and they own restaurants. That's a good thing. Go and catch up with people, but also cutting back. That's another way of saving is cutting back on the amount you go to eat and drink, and save that money.
Save that money.
Goes further. I'm not saying this is a recession, but I have a good feeling we're heading into one. And this happens every 8, 9, 10 years. So when the next one comes, when you have that bucket of cash sitting, you reach out to guys like you and invest that into markets.
Correct. Yeah. It's like you said, we start off the top of this, hindsight's 2020. Hopefully people are able to recognize that, what changes they can make going forward. Because like you said, this is cyclical. It is going to come back. It's going to happen again. I think that pandemics like this, viruses like this, health crises like this are things that might happen a little bit more often than we're used to going forward. And we need to sort of kind of adjust to this new norm as well. And it's time to really get your house in order and start doing the things that you can do to make sure that next time this happens, you're somewhat protected, right? And again, it's about the habits. Start building the habits.
Most important thing out of this whole conversation is the habit. How do people get a hold of you?
Man,
we'll have your links below. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Instagram, I'm on Instagram a lot, LinkedIn a lot, and of course email. But love interacting with people on Instagram for sure. It's probably where I live the most.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, brother. Keep safe.
I appreciate it. You as well, man. Appreciate it. Man. All the best. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.